walk a mile in their shoes. Same thing goes for tires. Except Firestone knows it's not just 1 mile, it's many. With the industry-leading 90-day buy and try guarantee, you can test drive our tires for 90 days. Then if you're not fully satisfied with them, we'll refund or replace them for you. Whatever you drive, drive a Firestone.
Conditions apply. See FirestoneTire.com for details.
Change happens when you choose it. You can choose treatment and change your addiction to opioids. Medication-assisted treatment, or MAT, is a proven treatment for opioid addiction that significantly reduces the rate of relapse. Learn more at choosemat.org and choose Change California.
It's time to say see you later, alligator, to embarrassing and troublesome issues with your skin, nails, and hair with all-natural Cayman alligator oil. Cayman oil is locally made, right in Louisiana, where people have been using alligator oil for centuries to treat all kinds of ailments. A drop a day of Cayman oil can help you say, see you later, alligator, to athlete's foot, nail fungus, acne, eczema, rashes, dry skin, cuts, infections, MRSA, scars, burns, sunburns, and even ingrown hair and dandruff. If you or someone you know is tired of suffering with any of these skin, nail, and hair troubles, you need to visit mycayman.com to learn more about 100% natural, non-toxic, hypoallergenic Cayman oil and get a bottle today. Say see you later, alligator, with Cayman alligator oil at mycayman.com. That's mycayman.com. mycayman.com.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. President Trump says it's up to Attorney General Bill Barr to decide if Special Counsel Robert Mueller testifies before Congress. Trump made the surprise comment at the White House today when asked about a weekend tweet that suggested otherwise. America's top diplomat is warning Iran about the consequences of attacking the U.S. or its interests. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said today any attack would be met with a swift and decisive response. He also accused Iran of taking part in an escalating series of threatening actions and statements. North Korea's Kim Jong-un is letting the U.S. know he's personally supervising the new round of missile launches. State-run media said today Kim oversaw the North Korean Army's latest strike drill to help guarantee the genuine peace and security of the country. President Trump said the U.S. is watching North Korean missile tests very closely.
Nobody's happy about it, but we're taking a good look and we'll see.
At the White House today, Trump suggested North Korea may not be ready to negotiate seriously about denuclearization. A fake German heiress is being sentenced to prison after she was convicted of swindling hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, some people's advice is to fake it till you make it. And defense attorneys for 28-year-old Anna Sorokin say that's exactly what their client tried to do, pretending to have a multi-million-dollar trust fund, ordering private jets, staying at luxury hotels, even though she was in reality broke, a middle-class immigrant from Russia. No millions in the bank back home, as her father is apparently a former trucker who runs a heating and cooling business. Sorokin apologized in court, admitting she made some mistakes in New York City, a Manhattan judge sentencing her to 4 to 12 years in prison, and she may face deportation. James Flippin, NBC News Radio, New York.
One of the top British entertainers of the 1970s through the 90s is dead. Freddie Starr was found at his Spanish apartment by a caregiver. He was 76 years old. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome, friends. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reed. By the way, you can follow this program on both Facebook and Instagram. Just go to Viewpoint with Father John. All of God's children are endowed with extraordinary purpose and ability. I'm on a quest to help as many as possible in fully realizing their divinely inspired potential. Disposing a false narrative and embracing genuineness inspires clarity of purpose. My role is to help overcome self-imposed limitations in realizing one's spiritual potential. And brothers and sisters, Viewpoint with Father John is a listener-supported program, so you're the ones who keep us on the air. So please go to viewpointwithfatherjohn.com, click on the support button and give what you can. I truly thank you for your support. Also, I'd like to invite you to buy a copy of my book, Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me. The premise of this book is that we are all God's children and that we do not need more self-improvement. Rather, we need self-discovery. Close Your Eyes So You Can See Me is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. So get your copy today. And it's not too early to start shopping for Christmas, you know what they say, because next week they'll start putting up the Christmas decorations in Home Depot. They usually do this time of year. I'm just playing. Tonight, we have a very important program. My guest is LaMonica Stowers with Foothill AIDS Project, which is a wonderful organization based out of Claremont. I knew them when they were in Pomona. And they do some wonderful work for the community. And so, LaMonica, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Father John. I appreciate you inviting us to join you this evening.
It's my privilege, and I thank you for being here because I think what you do is so important. Tell me a little bit about the mission. Tell our listeners a little bit about the mission of Foothill AIDS Project.
Well, I'll share with you its humble beginnings as it surrounds itself around its total mission. As many of your viewers may be aware, FAP began over 30 years ago in the San Gabriel Valley area. Founded in 1987 as an actual incorporation, FAP's mission was to reduce stigmas and to fight the ignorance as it relates to the disease and promoting education. That was their mission then, and it remains the same to this day, to help those in need. As they began in a small, very, very small setting, in one individual's living room. Actually, it was 4 founding members who decided to try and assist those who were dealing with this tragic disease by just helping them to go and walk their dogs or maybe prepare meals, assist them with their bills on a day-to-day basis, just those typical functions that many of them found themselves unable to complete on their own. So their mission remains the same to this day.
That's a very important mission. Years ago, and I'm not saying this to pat my own back, so please don't take this wrong, but when AIDS first started becoming famous, I mean, it's been around longer than people realize, but when it first started becoming famous, I was one of the only clergy in that area openly doing funerals for people dying of AIDS. They were today's lepers, as far as they were concerned. Nobody knew what to do, and I found when I volunteered there that the greatest thing I could do is rub somebody's feet, because that personal touch to let them know they're not alone in this world. Because you get cancer, people run up to you. Yeah. You get like I deal with an autoimmune disease, which of course AIDS is as well. But people come up and they with fibromyalgia, they want to know how they can help. But when you say you have AIDS, back then, people ran away from you, and it was a very lonely existence. Is that still an issue with a lot of the patients?
For many of them, that continues to be an issue, but for slightly different reasons. Many of the clients that we serve continue to deal with barriers as it relates to acceptance of their family and friends based on their lifestyle, be it their sexuality or their activities, possibly drug usage that could have been a direct result in them contracting the disease. And for that reason, many of them have been shunned by not only their community, but their families as well.
Yes, that's absolutely true. It's tragic. These aren't bad people trying to get good. These are people who have an illness and are trying to get better, and we don't choose our orientation. It's a God-given gift. And and that's where your LGBT QIA, did I get them all that time?
I believe so.
Was I close? When they first put the IA in there, I thought, oh my goodness, now they have an internal affairs too. So,
right.
Forgive the humor. But the more that we recognize that these are our brothers and sisters and children of God, the more we can be of service, rather than just being hateful, because, when we don't understand something, our first emotion is fear. And, one of the things I talk about in my book is that we have 3 acronyms for fear: false evidence appearing real, forget everything and run, face everything and recover. So I think what you're doing is so important because you're helping people face everything and recover. So how is it you educate people a little bit on people suffering with this disease and what they might be coming up against?
Well, one of the main ways in which we try and help people understand is through our outreach. We have many events throughout the year where we invite the community to come in and not only take a look at FAP, but also to participate and interact with our clients to some degree. We have our bingo tournaments that we have. We have our food programs that we ask people in the community if they're willing to come out and lend their services or their skill sets. We have over 200 volunteers, a roster of 200 volunteers that come in and do various jobs to educate not only themselves, but those in the community about the need for services such as ours to provide integrated services for individuals, because many of these individuals are living below the federal poverty line. And with that being said, many of them lack the knowledge and know-how to obtain services. Recently here in Southern California, we've had the benefit of the ACA, but many of our clients, due to literacy, are unaware of how to obtain those services. So through the efforts of FAP and our volunteers, we're able to educate our clients along at the same time educating the community.
Wow, that's great. And I didn't realize that you had a religious service as well. You mentioned bingo, and that's a Catholic sacrament. Just playing with you. So I know that's
indeed.
That's what you get for talking to a priest, right?
Right.
Well, that's very good. Now, do you do any mental health outreach as well?
We do, and actually, FAP has come a very long way since its humble beginnings in providing a spectrum of services and programs to empower clients in over 3 counties at current to date in an effort to manage their health care goals. And as such, we provide mental health services and substance abuse services to those clients in the community. We provide group services as well as individual services. And how we find that to be a benefit to the clients is, again, going back to what we shared earlier about those who have been ostracized by their community. This gives them a sense of community, a sense of belonging, right? And so if they're struggling with mental health issues, and oftentimes, because many of our clients are dealing with dual diagnoses, and so they're dealing with their substance abuse issues as well, they find that camaraderie of being able to cope with these conditions in our group settings. And many of them go on to the individual setting and counseling as well. And one of the big benefits of FAP, unlike many of the larger institutions of healthcare, is that they're limited to approximately 6 visits, I believe, within a 12-month period, whereas FAP provides individual counseling and services to the individual client and their families up to 18 months.
Wow. And is there a fee for that, or is that a community service? How does that work?
There's no fee.
Wow.
There's no fee.
That's
It's all free.
fantastic.
Yes.
And now, is that run with volunteers or with licensed clinicians? That particular. I'm sorry.
Yes.
What?
Yes, it's ran with licensed clinicians, mental health clinicians, and certified substance abuse counselors.
Very good. That certified, I never miss an opportunity to mention this, but the original KDAC programs, Certified Drug and Alcohol Counselors, is what it was originally. My brother started that whole program, he and Dr. Don Rusk. So very familiar with it. Now
Interesting to know.
Now it's Katie.
Yes.
And the fact that I know both of those, I knew Cara tells you I'm an old man now. So
you're well versed.
Yeah, well, it's because I used to have red hair, now I have white hair, and it I feel betrayed by my follicles. So we're getting ready to go to our first commercial.
Okay.
And my guest this evening is LaMonica Stowers, and she's with Foothill AIDS Project, and we're talking about the programs that they offer and hopefully to educate some of the people in the community, because I think this is one of the more important programs. So we'll be back in 2 and 2.
The loss of a loved one is one of the most challenging experiences in a person's life. It's hard to know where to turn to make your loved one's final arrangements. Jesse Ruiz at Personal Funeral Planning in Ontario will treat you and your loved one with the respect you deserve. Jesse served in the Marine Corps in Desert Storm and understands what it takes to provide loyal, personalized, and empathetic service to those who need it most. The families of Michael Jackson, Brittany Murphy, Ed McMahon, and many others have trusted Jesse to provide them with the highest level of service and support. To work with Jesse, call 909-762-4027, 909-762-4027, or visit their website, www.4pfp.org. www.4pfp as in personal funeral planning.org. Jesse Ruiz and Personal Funeral Planning, veteran-owned and operated, helping you plan a personal, lasting tribute for your loved one. www.4pfp.org.
Now you can listen to KCAA Radio anytime on your smartphone device. Call 720-835-3099. 720-835-3099.
And welcome back, friends. You are tuned to KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, 106.5 FM, or on the World Wide Web at kcaaradio.com. This is Viewpoint with Father John, and I am your host, Father John Reed. And our sound engineer tonight is Frank, and Frank's doing a heck of a job. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you, Father John?
I am well. 3 scotches to the wind, because that's an Irish requirement according to our union. So, and our producer Gabby's across the way here, and my guest tonight is LaMonica Stowers, and she's with Foothill AIDS Project, which is a program that's very near to my heart, that I had the privilege of doing some stuff with years ago, but they've changed greatly, just like I have in, never mind, almost 30 years. So, what are the different things obviously you deal with AIDS patients, and which is really the wrong way for me to refer to it. I realize that. And so how do people find your program?
Well, it's interesting because they find us in several different avenues. They can be referred to us through our collaboration with the Public Health Department. Currently, we are working with the San Bernardino Public Health Department, which has offices in Victor Valley, Hesperia, San Bernardino, and Ontario. They have allowed us to come in and work with the population there that are there seeking services. So the Public Health Department refers them to our representatives that are there twice a week.
Okay.
I believe twice a week at all 4 locations.
Now, do you keep your focus around HIV, or do you branch out to other things? Remember, it's been 25, 30 years since I've been over there.
So that is our primary focus. However, we do provide services to individuals regardless of their status. Mm-hmm. We have, specifically as it relates to those who may not be HIV positive or have AIDS. Our reentry program services those recently released from correctional facilities, regardless of their HIV status.
Okay.
We also provide transportation services for seniors in the high desert who are in need of adequate transportation, because as I mentioned earlier, that we are servicing 3 counties, which is covering 28,000 square miles.
Wow.
Through various urban, suburban, and rural desert communities.
Wow, that's beautiful. When I was there, it was handling mainly the San Gabriel Valley area, but not as far as you are reaching out now, so I'm really impressed. You've really come a long way. I'm not surprised, but I am impressed because I wish I could remember her full name. I believe her first name was Pat, who was the executive director back then. And she was doing some very progressive things back then that really was putting the place on the map. So you've been in good hands for a lot of years with different directors, I know. Now, what about people who are HIV positive and are dealing with homelessness? Do you have a track for any of that?
We actually do, and it's interesting. As we were on hold during the commercial, I was listening to the announcements on the radio, and it had mentioned about the governor wanting to add additional funding into the homeless prevention program in the state of California.
Yes.
And I was very excited to listen to that as we offer homeless services and homeless prevention in 3 counties through FAP. We provide on an annual basis services to over 300 clients, and that service includes temporary and permanent housing under transitional and crisis management. Now, this is a collaboration, too, that we have with one of the largest shelters. Actually, I believe, don't quote me, but I believe that they are the only shelter that are working openly with the HIV community, and that's CCLM, a shelter in San Bernardino County.
Now, that's not the one that's out of the Quaker Church there in Claremont? It's another one?
No, this one's actually located in San Bernardino off of the 215.
I will have to get information about that, being that there's stations in Redlands. So that's very good. See, you're already educating me. Teaching an old dog new tricks, but I'm not going to bark.
No, and I believe and my apologies, I cannot remember, they recently changed their name to CCLM, but they were under a different name prior to that. But I'll get that information to you.
Fantastic. Well, if you haven't guessed already, probably in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to swing by and say hello to your staff there, because being that I'm in Claremont, just be good. I know your office over by the UCC there. Somebody gets diagnosed with HIV. You have tracks to help them deal with the initial diagnosis?
Yes.
Okay, let me talk about that for a moment.
Okay, great. So we have what we call EIS, Early Intervention Services. That's where you're paired up with a case manager who will navigate you through the process, providing. Actually, we also do. Sorry, just to sidetrack a bit. We also do testing. So, in that caveat, we also provide counseling as you await your test results.
Oh, good.
So even before you are aware that you have HIV, we're already starting the counseling process to prepare the individuals to what's forthcoming. And then we introduce them to the various services that we have, which is our psychosocial case management that we provide for clients, to bring them into the fold, to let them know that they're not alone, as we link them with other services within the agency, for like the food nutrition program we have, the medical case management that we have. We have a registered dietitian on staff. We have a registered RN on staff that helps them to be able to interpret their med usage, because oftentimes people will go to the doctor and they're intimidated, right?
Oh,
They're reluctant to ask certain questions because they're still in shock. But with under our medical case management, they have that comfort in that family setting feeling where they can come home and ask questions to their comfort level.
Oh, that's great. Because I imagine one of the difficulties is dealing with the idea, how do I tell my family? Particularly the family is already, and I want to state something. I'm going to digress for just a moment. HIV and AIDS is not a gay disease. It's for anybody can get it. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to say something where I really break with the church establishment. And I'm Eastern Orthodox, not Roman, but I'm breaking with both of them right now, where I'm saying this is why we need good sex education. We need to talk about safe sex with people, using proper protection, and we have to catch up with the times. If we don't, we're responsible for the deaths of people dealing with HIV, in my opinion. It's just my opinion, but I'm right. So.
and Father, I'd like to add something to that.
Yes.
In that substance abuse is a large area as well, because to your point, it is not just a gay disease. It is a disease that is oftentimes contracted through intravenous drug use, as we know that many people are sharing their needles and their tools that they're using to elicit these illegal drugs. And for many of the clients that we see up under substance abuse, many of them may be gay, they may be straight.
That's right. That's right.
But they contracted the disease through their intravenous drug use and not through their sexual activity.
That's right. And there are many cases where it's been spread from male to female, female to male, because there was the cross-contamination of blood, where it was a tear in the vaginal area or in the penile area. And I'm going to say something that I think is so important for the listeners to hear. This is not a punishment from God. A God that would do that is not worthy of being called love. Instead, it's just part of our human condition. And so nobody deserves to get this. And so it's not a punishment, just like you're not being punished when you get the flu or cancer. It's something that happens. And forgive me for going on about that, but I think it's something that's so misunderstood.
No, most definitely. And I think that's part of the education, right? Because I'm going to go back to what you said earlier about individuals when they try and digest information that they can't quite compute. And then it goes into that fear factor, right?
Right.
And a lot of the ignorance, the hate stems from fear, right? They don't understand the unknown. So I think that one of the great attributes of this agency and the fact that they've been around for 30 years is that they continue to carry that mission of educating and promoting and protecting the humanity of the clients and the families that they serve.
Which would lead me to believe that you follow the format of HIPAA, correct?
I'm sorry, one more time, Pastor?
I said that leads me to believe that you follow the standards of HIPAA. In other words, the privacy that no information is ever let out to people, correct?
The HIPAA, yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm on a headset, the earbuds. I didn't quite hear that one. The HIPAA, yes, most definitely.
Yeah. Well, I got into it earlier, and we used to call it HIPAA, so I'm still using the old pronunciation, so forgive me.
No worries. Most definitely. Our clients, we try and make sure that they have restored that self-esteem, that integrity within themselves and protecting their identity, and we take all precautions to do so. We've also added to our list of services a workforce development, wherein which that we're working with those clients who may have, for various reasons, not been able to continue their education, and some of them are struggling with literacy, but we're still working with them to try and meet them where they are and aid them in trying to restore some of that independence that comes with employment.
Sure. Well, and that's very important. I want to go into that in just a minute. I want to digress for just a second, if you'll bear with me. Just some important information for listeners to have, because I think that HIV and AIDS are very misunderstood diseases still, even though we've gotten better than we used to be. You cannot contract this just shaking hands with somebody, hugging somebody. It has to be a blood transfer. And so it's okay to hug people. It's okay to hold their hand. That's why I said back then we still weren't quite sure yet, but I found the most powerful thing I could do for the people I had the privilege of working with was just rub their feet, because nobody was touching them at the time because they were so afraid. And just that human touch was world-changing for them. And it changed my world as well, because I got to see how important this is, what we do for one another. So when you're getting them ready for work, do you have some employers that are kind of teaming up with you, or what does that certain venue look like?
We do. We have employers that are opening their doors to us and willing to meet with our clients. But first, we still have our first cohort that we're working with. Some of them have gone out on interviews, but we're teaching them the basic skills on how to write a resume, how to apply for a job online, because for many of them, for those, especially those who are incarcerated, the computer wasn't the first go-to resource when applying for a job, right? And so there's that added barrier, not just being able to recant the information that's required, but how do I do this on this computer screen that's staring back at me with this keyboard? Because if they didn't learn how to read or write, they definitely didn't learn the functionality of a computer. So we're pulling it back to the bare basics and starting from the beginning.
Well, and that's a difficult skill as it is, because, I've been around a long time, and a few years back I thought about taking just a little time off, and I went to apply for some different jobs, and because I couldn't interview, everything was online, I was very intimidated, because I've always been able to get work through the interview, and they just don't do it that way anymore.
Yeah, that's the sad part. As a whole, society is moving away from that interpersonal skill where you're able to read and work off of, the human cues, the emotional cues.
Yes.
But that's long gone. So it is an added barrier for them on how to sell themselves via the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would imagine, now forgive me for making any presumptions here, but I simply imagine inside my mind and in my heart that when somebody is first coming to you, they're terrified. Here they've been told they may have this thing, and it's hard to get good information if you don't know who to talk to. I bet that first conversation is pretty difficult. Has that been your experience?
It definitely has. While I am a part of the administrative team, oftentimes we're the first they'll call, and they're wanting information. Many times they won't share their name. They won't even answer a few of the basic questions that we ask. Typically, the first question we want to know is, what county are you in? Because that will tell us what services are available to them, and they're reluctant to do that. That stigma is still there. And we're dealing with a much younger generation now than when the disease first came on the scene. And so that speaks to the fact of how ingrained this stigma is in society, that we're talking about millennials who were not around in the 80s to know how devastating this disease was. But yet today they still feel the need to it's difficult to say, but they still feel this need. They're hesitant to ask and seek services. One of the bigger trends that we're seeing is that individuals are attempting to access HIV treatment in the later stages.
Wow.
39% of the 96% of households that we serviced in 2018 were seeking services in the later stages.
Stage 3 and Stage 4, yeah.
Yes, so that just speaks to those who are still reluctant to come and seek for services. So to your point about the fear is still paralyzing some of the individuals that we're seeing.
Now, speaking of the individuals you're serving, are you seeing an increase in a teenage population as well?
We are.
Yeah.
Monthly we meet to discuss, the trends that we're seeing, and from month to month, one of the things we're seeing is a rise in our youth population and the clients that are coming to us for treatment.
Yes.
Now, that could be viewed in a couple of different ways.
All right.
Of course, it could be viewed as it's on the rise, or it can be viewed as the youth is not afraid to come and seek services as the older population. To my point of earlier, where I just stated that, we're noticing that some of the individuals that we're seeing are waiting to the third and fourth stage to come in to see us. So
Sure.
it's just one lens to look at it with that we're still trying to identify.
Oh, that's very good. Now, are some of these schools working with you for you to come in and educate a little bit, or is that something that's still being worked on?
We're still working on that. We haven't found that niche to try and that will allow the schools to come in, to allow us in.
Okay.
But we're still definitely open to it. We're open to any collaboration that will allow us to better support the stable living
Yes.
for the clients.
And that's something else. We can talk to them about cancer. We can talk to them about all things. We can't talk to them about HIV. I think
The
that's
stigma. Stigma's still alive.
yeah, and that's scary. We're doing a serious disservice to children, but they still won't let us talk about condoms.
Right.
That's at one time I was famous for being one of the priests that always kept a bunch in my glove box and handed them out. Fortunately, I had a very understanding bishop who was doing the same thing because we both have worked hospice, so we've seen a lot, and we both agreed that this is a service we should be doing and trying to take the stigma out of it. And we're just coming up on our next commercial break, and so we're going to come back in just a couple minutes. Now, my guest this evening is LaMonica Stowers, and she's with Foothill AIDS Project, and she's our guest this evening talking about a very important topic. So we'll be back in 2 and 2.
I always hear from our clients who hired another firm that they wish they'd hired DNA Financial first. Don't have regrets about your IRS tax case. Just hire the best in the first place.
One owed $150,000 to the IRS and had spent thousands on another firm. We stopped the levies, negotiated a payment plan, and had their penalties forgiven.
And while every case is different, we guarantee that we'll find your perfect resolution and get it done right.
For a free consultation, call us at 866-201-0156. That's 866-201-0156. Then you can say, DNA did right by me.
Are you ready for a new experience? To see life from another point of view? New hope, new expression, new joy. This is your radio hour. Welcome to Viewpoint with Father John.
And welcome back, brothers and sisters. We are back. We're doing some technical stuff tonight, and so as you can see, you got to hear the beginning all over again. They say in some of the 12-step programs you can restart your day at any time, and so we're doing that by giving you the bumpers, as they call them. So my guest this evening is LaMonica Stowers, and she's with Foothill AIDS Project, a program that's very dear to my heart. And I say that, I kind of say it like someone talks about their in-laws a little bit, because you talk that you enjoy them, but you never go and see them. And so forgive me that for many years I went out of state, and then I come back and I don't even come by and say hi. Now, how are you sustained? Do you receive funding of any sort, or do people just donate?
Well, we are funded, both federally and locally. We do have the privilege of being funded by Ryan White.
Okay.
And we're also funded by the HOPWA program, HOPWA in all three counties, Riverside, Los Angeles, and San Bernardino.
Now, what is that? What is HOPWA?
HOPWA is the acronym for homeless individuals living with HIV.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't familiar with that one.
Or AIDS, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yes. So we receive that for all three counties. We do receive corporate and private donations as well, grants and donations.
Very good. And can individuals make donations, or can people leave in their will or anything?
They definitely can make donations. I would encourage anyone who's interested in exploring the donations on behalf of the FAP or to the FAP to visit our website at fap.org.
Very good. And I will put if it's okay with you, I'll put a link on our show webpage so that people can also go through there and click on it, if that would be acceptable to you.
That would be great.
and because I think what you're doing is so important. So we've talked a little bit about some of the stuff. Now, do you still have the personal active listener track as well, or is that been phased out and replaced with the counseling?
Father, I would be interested in hearing more about that program when you come to visit next week. That's a new one to me.
Okay. So that's fair enough. I'll bring that in. And,
Okay.
We talked about that before the show. You said, now you were there a long, long time ago. And I said, well, I just sound very old.
No, I welcome. We can reinvent anything at any time.
Well, I was told, as an Eastern Orthodox priest, I am married. My wife says I've recreated the headache. So, that's just the way it is. So what are some of the other things you'd like for us to know about FAP and what you're offering as outreach and also programs, services provided?
Well, the latest being our testing. We're doing outreach. You can track us on our website where we're out doing pop-up testing in various communities. But that aside, we are providing HIV testing in the High Desert in our Hesperia office, as well as our San Bernardino office and our Riverside office. The Hesperia and Riverside offices are by appointment.
Mm-hmm.
So individuals who are interested in knowing their status, it is completely confidential. It is completely free.
Very good.
Completely free. They do not have to be a current member of FAP to partake in the offering of testing. And that's the big one that we have going right now, the big campaign for our outreach. I can provide you with the testing dates for Hesperia by appointment only on Mondays and Fridays. And then for our Riverside office, they can do same day, any day. And then for the San Bernardino office, they can do same day, any day.
Oh, that's fabulous. And if I may, if you don't mind me elaborate on this just for a second, if you've ever had sexual relations, get tested. You're not just having intercourse with the person you're with, you're having intercourse with everybody they've been with too. And I know that sounds tacky, but if we're not honest about this, so even if you're not really promiscuous, it's just safe to get tested. And now some doctors do it just because of the fact that, like, if you have memory loss or anything, one of the tests they do is to see if you have any STDs and such. But I think it's so important for people to realize that it's okay if you don't have symptoms and you just want to know. Get tested.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't show right away, if I'm correct. Is that good
You're
information?
correct.
Okay.
It can lie dormant for up to 18 months without any detections whatsoever.
Wow.
And it's been known to lie dormant as long as up to 10 years.
Yes. And there are treatments now, is that correct?
Most definitely. The drugs that they're using today, the medications and the drug treatment plans have improved by leaps and bounds just in 3 to 4 short years. 4 years ago, the medications that they were using were filtered all through your liver, which was very damaging to the liver at that time. Today's medications are far more improved. There's minimal effects to the liver, and so and they're down to just one pill a day, whereas before they were 10 years ago, they were like taking 12 to 17 pills a day, and now they're down to just one pill a day for many of the individuals that are living with this disease.
Oh, that's wonderful, because I remember when I first got involved, we used to start on what was called the cocktail.
Yes.
And that would almost make them as sick, if not sicker, than the symptoms they already had. But we didn't know anything else to put in there. Because we're just trying to save their lives. And now, can the disease be put in remission now, or not at all?
It can be undetected. So that's our goal, is to have the viral count suppressed to levels of undetection. Now, that's not to say that you can go out and carry on as though you don't have the disease,
Right.
but it's far less likely for them to be able to spread the disease.
Yeah.
If I may, I just would like to tag on to the piece in which you spoke about getting tested just to know your status if you are sexually active. I would like to encourage those to get active if you are participating in drug use
Yes.
of any sort, because that too is sharing the same DNA of those who you've encountered with that.
Oh, thank you for mentioning that. I that totally slipped my mind, and that is a very important point. So thank you for that. So that's another thing too, kids. If you are using any type of drugs, definitely get tested. Look, when we stay into fear, we are putting nails in our own coffin, whether we realize it or not. You may find out you have something else and it's not HIV, but if you don't get tested, you don't know, and you can't get early treatment. And I don't mean to sound lecturous, but this is a very serious matter. And you have the choice of either living a life relatively healthy or taking the streetcar all the way to the end of the line to what could be a very painful experience. Would you agree with that?
Most definitely. I think for me personally, my biggest fear is that because the medications and treatment plans for the disease have advanced so from what it once was just 10 short years ago, many people don't view this as a deadly disease. They view it as, and it's been typed as a chronic illness, much like diabetes and such. And so people tend to go in and out of support of their health, much like a diabetic might, right? But diabetics are still having to have, procedures done or limbs removed because of neglect of that disease, and people are still dying from it. But they don't see it as an epidemic, which in a sense is doing a little more harm than good, right?
Exactly.
Because they don't see the severity of it as they once did.
No, I get that. As someone who has type 2 diabetes, I totally get that. And, I can't have good blood sugar on yesterday's treatment. I have to do the treatment today.
Exactly. And for those who suffer with chronic conditions, they don't like taking the medication, and that's really the real issue, chiming back to the mental health and the substance abuse and why they tend to go in and out of treatment so often, because the medication, they're not, and then sometimes even if they can tolerate the medication, it just doesn't work with the chemical imbalance that they're experiencing today.
Right.
And it could cause them to relapse and fall out of services. And then when they return, they're in a much worse state than they left.
Well, yeah, and also I have many years of counseling experience, and let's say either schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, a lot of times when they get feeling better, they think they don't need the medication anymore, so they stop taking it.
Exactly.
And then when the wheels fall off, they're often worse off than they were before.
Exactly.
Because it never gets better.
And that's why we find our mental health and our substance abuse program to be so vital to the services, right? Because we can provide housing, but if they're not mentally stable, or if their substance abuse is not under control,
right,
then it's a rebound effect. And in many instances for services, they have to fit a certain mold in order to receive services. They have to have at least been in one residential treatment facility. They have to have been clean for 6 months. And oftentimes, the clients, they don't want to go into a treatment facility because they feel like they can manage themselves. And so it's a constant challenge for the staff to constantly reassess clients for their services, but yet they do it diligently because they're committed to their client and the population that they serve.
Oh, that's so important. I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's not just one population that is affected by this, but many populations. And one of the biggest denials is it could happen to anybody but me.
Exactly.
And that's how this thing spreads so well too, because people don't get tested, they don't know that they're infected, and now they're infecting other people. Another thing I think it's important to mention to anyone that does know that they are positive for this, and that they're still going out and not letting other people know and having unprotected sex with them, they can actually be charged with a crime.
Yes.
And,
yes.
Do you have any information on that you'd like to share?
Honestly, I don't at this time.
Okay.
But I would like to speak to the stigma of people feeling as though they don't want to engage with people who have HIV.
Yes,
or
please
AIDS,
do.
Right?
Yes.
What I tell people is that you're being imprisoned by your own mind, because imagine how many people hand you shook yesterday that could have been infected, because HIV no longer has a distinct look, a population. To your point, it has affected all populations. It does not matter your ethnicity. It does not matter your age. It does not matter your community. You know, you could be at the grocery store and you could be talking to your produce guy and not know that they are living with HIV.
Right.
You could be talking to your child's teacher and not know that they're living with HIV. So to refuse to engage with an individual because you know or you perceive that they have HIV is a moot point, because more than likely during the course of any given day, you may have come in contact with one or two people who are HIV infected.
Yes.
And living normal lives just like you.
Yes. And you said the most important thing, they're people. And sometimes we identify people by a disease, not by who they are as a person. And we lose our humanity when we do that. And, you know, we're living in hostile times as it is at the moment. I know eventually it will pass again and we'll get back to acting like people who are civilized once again. But, yeah, again, it's one of those things where, remember, these are people who didn't ask to have this happen. They weren't out saying, hey, let me go see if I can get this disease. They're deserving of our compassion and our love.
Well, let's take, you asked us about our funding, and I shared with you that we're funded by Ryan White. Let's take Ryan White, for example. Here's a young, healthy 13-year-old boy who, by way of blood transfusion, contracted this disease.
Yes.
Now, understanding the sympathy that went out to him, many others are deserving of that because they contracted this disease not because they were out, partying or anything like that, but through blood transfusions, through unclean dental tools. And most recently, I heard of someone contracting HIV through her manicure.
Wow. That's right, because you can get little cuts on your hands.
Exactly.
From while you're getting the manicure or pedicure, and there's your blood transfer. Oh.
And they're using tools that clearly was not properly sterilized. So it's no longer, we cannot continue to foster these illusions that these individuals are of a different, they're not deserving of the respect and understanding of the plight that they are on.
Yeah. And then you have babies that have it too, that received it through birth. And and sometimes the mom didn't know that she was infected. It could have been a medical procedure. It could have been, it could be a number of things. You said it so well that it can lay dormant for as much as 18 months. And people don't know. And so, this is very good information. Now, if people want to be in touch with you, you mentioned a website. What are ways that what are the best ways you'd like for people to get in touch with Foothill AIDS Project?
Well, if you're interested in volunteering, you would call our administrative office. You can start by calling the Claremont office, and that information can be found on the website. If you're interested in donating, we also have donations that we receive via the website. And if you're interested in any of our local community outreach programs, that too can be found on our Facebook and social media sites, which we are in the midst of revamping.
Very good. Now, you do public forums from time to time where people can come and get information, such as at gatherings like Veterans Day and stuff like that. Do you have stuff coming up that people can attend? We
tend to go out in the community as we're invited to various fairs. And the one large event that we typically participate in is World AIDS Day. Of course, that is in December. But it's typically by invitation for those events that we are invited to speak at or provide services under.
Very good. Well, I'd like to offer to you that if you have some of these things coming up and you just like a word put out, I'd be happy to mention it on the program if you get me the information. And that way we can help support you on this end as well, because I think what you are doing is so important. And I thank you for being a terrific guest this evening. My guest this evening has been LaMonica Stowers from the Foothill AIDS Project, and I hope this has been very informative for you. And I'm sure at some point, if she's willing, we'll have her back again to talk a little bit more and keep us up to date with what's going on with Foothill AIDS Project. In the meantime, for people who tune in every week, I thank you for tuning in. And for those of you who do support this program, I thank you for continuing to do that. Those of you who would like to know how you support this program, just go to viewpointwithfatherjohn.com, and father is spelled out, it's not just FR, and just click on the select button. Also, if you didn't hear the link of how to get in touch with Foothill AIDS Project, over the next few days, I will try to put up a link on there. At the very least, I'll put on both our Facebook page and our website the address on the web. And so thank you again for tuning in this week. If no one's told you that they love you this week, let me be the first. And thank you for tuning into Viewpoint with Father John on KCAA Radio in Redlands.